Okay, so today I want to talk about the concept of pulling back and when it's appropriate and how much to pull back and what pulling back actually means, right? So pulling back in a sales context means that you basically take the pressure off and you do so verbally and with your body language, right? So you're in this context, you're having a conversation, you're explaining something, and then, maybe you might sit back, right? So and then you're telling them what you can do and you're explaining the concept and what the next steps would be. And you tell me, what you'd like to do from here, right? You sit back. You see that now you tell me, right? Or, however, you feel is best. What do you think? And I'm like, oh, okay. What do I think? Because now they want to bridge the gap. Now they feel like you've given them space to think and to engage with you. It's you hear this concept all the time in relationships as well, right? Which is that you never want to smother the other person and you never want to be so present that you don't allow them space to think and to breathe and to process the information. And especially in the context when you're asking for somebody else's money, right? You can't be pressure on. Now you can be passionate, right? You can be convicted. You can explain things to them in a way that communicates your enthusiasm and your energy and your belief in what you're doing. But when you're closing, you can't have that continued energy, right? Remember, this is a dance, right? What happens in a dance? You move forward, you move backwards. You move to the right, you move to the left, right? You move in, you move out. So the best way to know when you should pull back is to try it at different times, right? It's not like, oh, this is when you pull back. It's not really like that. A lot of sales you'll find is it's partly intuition. It's part testing and finding out, okay, if I do this, how does the person react? Oh, now I know in the future what to do. Now, you don't want to do it too much or you don't want to do it at inopportune moments because if you do that at inopportune moments, then you give them too much space or they're just like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll get back to you then, right? Those are the types of scenarios that you want to try to avoid. So you don't want to get into those scenarios. And I've stepped in it too in that way. In fact, this happened today where, we were scheduling something and I'm like, well, you don't have to make a decision now. Or what did I say? I said something to that effect where I basically told him, well, if you're looking to do this, this far out, it makes more sense if we reconvene. Whereas I could have positioned a little bit differently. Like, hey, secure the spot now because typically, these spots, I don't know when they're going to be filled. Like they do fill up pretty quickly, but if you want to make sure that your spot is reserved, you can do that. And worst case scenario, you can just kind of cancel. But it's good to have everything set up right now. I didn't do that. Instead, what I did was I pulled back too much. I was too relaxed. I was too indifferent, or I wanted to come off as indifferent. It's not like I was actually indifferent. I wanted him to close, of course, but it's almost like I couldn't be bothered. It's like that was the energy I was giving off, and he was like, "Oh, well, I guess we'll connect again." Now I'll keep you posted as far as if this is going to be a follow up. He's in my pipeline, so it's gonna be a follow up. But I'll keep you posted as to whether he closes or not. But yeah, it's really coming down to your intuition and how, and and you just doing it. And now again, it's important to not do it as a tactic, right? This is the whole problem that a lot of these people had with the pickup artists or whatever the case is, or these guys that teach social skills in the context of in this type of context. Now, I don't really know much about it, but I will say this that it does make sense when you take everything and you turn it into a tool instead of using your own intuition and your own emotional intelligence. It comes off as contrived and you're always in your head about what to do next, as opposed to really tapping into what the situation requires and then kind of acting accordingly. But again, it's a learning curve, it's a learning process. That's what you always have to reflect on your days. You always have to reflect on your calls and think of what you could have done better, because there is almost no call almost no meeting, almost nothing that you do that is 100% perfect. You can always find something to improve. It doesn't mean that you should nitpick and you should criticize yourself and judge yourself incessantly, but it just means that even where you succeed, give yourself credit for the success. And in fact, give yourself more credit than you would spend time on criticizing yourself. Right? It's important to give yourself feedback or to get other feedback, get feedback from other people, um, and to be able to critique yourself, especially when you didn't perform well, and you have to know why. Like, what happened? Why didn't it close? Even if you perform poorly and it closed, you're like, oh man, I just closed in spite of myself, not because of my performance, but in spite of my performance, I closed. And sometimes, there are the people who just lay down and close. There are other people who never buy. The majority of the people are somewhere in the middle, right? There's the 5% that are gonna buy no matter what, as long as you don't fuck it up. The 5% that will never buy, no matter how good your presentation or your discovery or your report is, no matter how good. And then there's a 90% somewhere in the middle, depending on the distribution, but that's kind of like a rough estimate. So the point is that you really want to test different things. You want to try things out. You want to be able to use your intuition, but you also want to reflect. You want to be able to translate your experiences into words, right? So you need to be able to verbalize things and write them down so that way you can have a record of what's exactly going on. And that way you know exactly what to do. And then when you see somebody's reaction, you know how to play off of that reaction. Remember, like a dance, you're playing off of each other's reactions. And this whole non-reactivity thing, that's a farce, right? You're always reacting. That's fucking bullshit. You can see that the best guys preaching non-reactivity, don't be reactive in the moment, in the game, so to speak, they are reactive, right? If a client says says something funny or a joke, and you smile or you laugh at it, you're reacting to what they said. This whole non-reactivity thing is fucking bullshit. It doesn't make any sense. Wipe it from your consciousness because it doesn't help you. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't hold your frame. You have your own frame, and it's true you want to be able to be in your zone and not kind of fall into somebody else's zone. That's not the point of reactivity versus non-reactivity. But you don't want to be like a robot, right? Be there stone faced or just do what you do and ignore the other person. No, it's a play, right? It's a dance between you and this other person. And you have to be able to, engage and then disengage. But you can't always be engaged, trying to close the deal, right? Like me, like me, please buy, please buy, please buy. Right? When you do that, you put up that energy. It's almost like you're saying those words. Like, please like me, please buy. Will you buy? Are you gonna buy? This is my product. It's so great. Will you buy? Will you like me? It's just very desperate. Even that is probably very off-putting to you. So yeah, keep that in mind. Give it a shot. Do that. Do the pullback, but again, you pull back very casually, and you have to make sure that it's congruent with what you're saying, and do so at opportune moments. When you feel the pressure, don't feel, you're going to feel something internally. You can dispel that by actually just sitting back, or like, hey, just you tell me what you think, or you could kind of do some kind of motion or some kind of have some kind of mannerism where you're just indicating to the other person, like, hey, I'm not trying to make you do anything you don't want to do. Just tell me what you're thinking. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then it gives them enough space. You're like, oh, that makes sense. And then you can re-engage. You're like, okay, well, if it makes sense, why don't we have a look at the calendar and see when we can fit you in? Okay, great. Let me pull that up. So you can see it's a dance, right? It's a dance. It's beautiful. It's almost like an art form. It's an art and a science simultaneously. So yeah, this video was a little bit more sales related. So I hope it was helpful and useful to you. And you can use it in a sales context or in a professional context or in a relationship context. But remember, don't use it to manipulate other people. You're just doing it so that you can give the other person space and see when it's appropriate. Right. And when you see, oh, this is actually helping the situation, then you do more of that in that context. But it doesn't mean you just kind of sit there and you're laid back the whole time like I was today. This is that's not going to be helpful either. You have to have some kind of level of engagement and steering the conversation and leading it and making sure that you're a leader and you're setting the frame and you're setting the tone, but also you're making sure that this person is coming along willingly coming along. So yeah, hope that was helpful. A couple of insights for you tonight, and I'll leave you with that for now, and I'll catch you in the next video.